Fighting between Israel and Hamas is raging on. In the last 48 hours, the Hamas-run Health Ministry in Gaza says more than 400 people were killed in Israeli attacks. In Gaza City, Israel's army is engaged in street-to-street combat with Hamas, which is designated a terrorist organisation by the European Union and United States. The latest violence follows a UN Security Council resolution that fell short of calling for a ceasefire.
Another day brings more death and destruction to the Gaza Strip. Israeli strikes hitting residential areas, like here in the southern city of Khan Yunis. Relatives burying the victims of the latest attacks. On Friday, Gaza's Hamas-run Health Ministry said more than 20,000 people have been killed in the Israeli offensive so far, about 1% of the territory's population.
These people are supposed to be safe in their homes and protected by the law. But as a man of the law, I declare that international law has collapsed. We're not allowed to have faith in any international law. It merely represents the law of the weak. If Israel were in the Palestinians' position, the world would not stand still and would act.
The strikes on Saturday came just hours after the UN Security Council approved a watered-down resolution. It avoids calling for a ceasefire, instead the creation of conditions for a sustainable truce. But the UN chief and the Palestinian representative want a halt to the fighting.
This resolution is a step in the right direction. It must be implemented and must be accompanied by massive pressure for an immediate ceasefire. I repeat, immediate ceasefire.
Despite growing international pressure, Israel says any ceasefire would only help Hamas.
If this council seeks to end hostilities, it should start by supporting Israel's mission of returning the hostages and eliminating the Hamas threat, and at the very least, it must prevent Hamas's empowerment. Just as this council is committed to increasing aid, it should also be committed to blocking the smuggling of arms and transfer of weapons to the Hamas terrorists.
The UN resolution calls for life-saving aid be rushed to Gaza at scale. With Gaza under full Israeli bombardment, it's unclear if and when this demand can be fulfilled.
Martin Rentsch from the UN's World Food Programme gave us an update on the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Good afternoon, Ben. Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. People in Gaza are living through hell as we speak. They have nothing to eat, nothing to drink, no home anymore. They're prone to diseases. Nowhere is safe, not for them, but also not for our humanitarians on the ground. I mean, aid trickles in. We still reach people, especially in the south, but more or less on an ad hoc basis. So aid is not flowing inside Gaza as it needs to be, and we don't reach people across the strip, although needs are massive and actually aid is needed everywhere.
What do you make of the UN Security Council resolution?
It's definitely a welcome step, but as the Secretary General outlined, it's not enough. We need a ceasefire now, but because only when guns fall silent, we can rebuild the humanitarian system that is basically on the brink of collapse inside of Gaza. You cannot, as UN, we cannot do our job when bombs are falling and fighting is continuing. That's why we need these guns to fall silent to actually help those people wherever they are, and especially vulnerable people like, pregnant women, children, because they need the aid the most.
So how does this all fit together with the Council's call on organisations like yours to get significantly more aid into Gaza while there's no chance of a ceasefire, not even a temporary truce?
Well, I mean, our call is we need all crossings open. We need much more aid because it's only trickling in. And as the Secretary General said, I mean, we can't. There's no use in counting trucks because the needs are massive. Our latest figures actually show that there is a looming famine in Gaza, and basically everyone is going hungry in Gaza. Families do not have enough to eat, and more people in Gaza are facing catastrophic hunger than in the rest of the world combined. I mean, that number is staggering, and that, you know, basically says it all. We need much more aid, and actually to distribute that aid efficiently, effectively inside of Gaza, we need a ceasefire, because you cannot build up a humanitarian system when bombs are falling.
I find it interesting that Israel's not on the same page as your organization and other humanitarian groups when it comes to the assessment of a lack of aid. Why do those views differ so greatly?
That is a difficult question. I mean, we are a humanitarian organization. We have people on the ground. We have eyewitnesses every day. We see what is going on. And now there is this famine food security report that is basically beyond politics. It's, you know, black on white that the situation is so terrible and not comparable to any other place in the world. And that is an independent assessment. And again, we need a ceasefire and we need much more aid. That's the situation we see every day with our own eyes in Gaza.
You heard it from the World Food Programme spokesperson, Martin Rentsch, in Berlin. Thanks for joining us today.